Welcome to the VE-Cast, a Vendux podcast titled The Next Stage CEO. Today I'm joined by Natasha Jeshani, President and CEO of Career Contacts, a Vancouver, British Columbia company. She runs a bootstrapped one-stop HR shop spanning recruitment and fractional HR, serving clients from two-person teams to enterprise and government across Canada and the US. With a hybrid team of about 25 and a deliberate downtown Vancouver office, Natasha has scaled her human first, technology enabled, including through a merger and acquisition of a larger firm. Natasha, welcome to the VE-Cast.
Thank you so much, Henning. I appreciate that intro.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I can't wait to talk about M&A, acquiring a larger firm. But let's go back to the origin. What did you see in the market that made you commit to the fractional HR and recruiter model?
I would love to say that I could see the fractional coming, but I started doing fractional work 12, 13 years ago. The word fractional HR wasn't even in the play yet. So for me, what I really wanted to do was to be able to create access for organizations to have high level HR and recruitment, but on an as needed basis. That was the big thing, was as needed support. Not every organization needs a full-time HR director and a full-time health and safety director. And so I started very much in my own expertise, HR, advisory, and recruitment, and then slowly grew as I started to get that market feedback that they wanted access to more and more expertise, which is how we ended up today with 15 centers of excellence. We started with 2.
Yeah. You deliberately kept it bootstrapped, no investors, correct?
We did.
What has that brought you, and at what cost? Sort of the trade-offs that you had to make along the way.
I appreciate the question because it was very intentional. I think the easy answer is that you have complete autonomy, not just in what you do, but in how you do it, which was very important. The traditional recruitment model is very clear. And so from an investor's perspective, to come into an organization that was completely disrupting the industry, it was going to be a hard sell and not something I was necessarily interested in doing. Our recruitment team are all HR degreed and diplomaed professionals who do recruitment as their core skill set of HR. They're not a sales team. So from an investor's perspective, it's very difficult to see that ROI, right? There's not the KPI that they're used to. But the trade-off is that you grow slowly. So for me, I was very intentional in our growth that I would bring in the business first, and then I would build the team to support the volume of work, as opposed to having an investor model where there's an influx of cash. You can build out a team, build out a sales funnel and a marketing team, and go out and acquire a lot of business very quickly. So that was just a different approach for me and how I wanted to build it. So M&A still played a factor in there, and there were still some strategic moves. But taking on investors was a choice that we made, and it's turned out to be the right one for us.
I can relate to that. We're bootstrapped as well. There's no
Yeah.
investor, so there are trade-offs, but it seems to be the longer term success model, where you can chart your own course and don't have to take into account the interests in quicker growth that an investor typically has.
It's very true. And also you need to think about what your end game is, right? I'm still very much running my dream job. I'm not looking to exit. So if your strategy is to build, grow, and exit, the investor model might be more aligned. But if you're building a company to run it yourself for the long term, then I would highly recommend the bootstrap model. It might take longer, but we're not in a rush. I've got nowhere to be. This is what I'm building. So I think it also depends. I think a lot of people talk about exits, and I think it's very important to build exitable company, but because I'm not looking to exit, I don't need to, you know, change my way of working to satisfy a buyout at the end of this.
Yeah. Take us back to those early days. You just kicked it off. What did first clients, first wins look like for you in those early days?
Looking back, I had no idea how to price I had no idea what my value was. I didn't understand contracting. I had a lot of people with a lot of advice who had never done this type of work before. And so it was sort of a combination of being willing to make some mistakes, to take some risk. And the first three clients that I got were all very small clients, but cumulatively were enough to simply replace my day job salary. And that's not hugely ambitious. And looking back, I mean, we do more in a month than I was ever making in a year. But at the time, you don't know what you don't know. And so for me, it was about building enough to replace the day job because I started as a side hustle. And the moment I quit, I had to really understand who I was as a professional. I'm an extrovert. I love working with other people. I like getting dressed up and having somewhere to go. And working from my couch at home on my own
Yeah.
was not good for anyone. It wasn't good for my family, for my own mental health. And so you get to know yourself really well. And so for me, I knew very early on in the first 2 years that I was not going to run a business on my own. I didn't necessarily have the playbook of what it was going to look like, but I knew that I was not going to be a solopreneur.
Yeah. You, I mentioned earlier, you built a team of around 25. Can you describe the makeup of that team since I labeled it hybrid? And how
Yeah.
did you land on the mix that you have?
So we really listened to our clients. And I think what was happening in the industry, especially, nearing the 2020 mark when COVID was sort of on its way, was a lot of organizations were going into a remote role. And what was happening is I was able to see the correlation between 100% remote work and then challenges that they were facing when it came to retention, when it came to community building, culture building, performance management. And so I had a very advantageous view because as the HR advisor, I was going into these companies to help them. And so I knew that there needed to be a balance between the ability to work from home and have that flexibility, but also to have my team physically together. There is a lot to be said for that collaboration, and I support that way of working. I help my clients do that. And so when we started to build, we needed to figure out what the best approach was. So we have our recruitment team where we do temp, perm, and executive search. We are here 2 to 3 days a week in the office. And then we have our fractional HR team. And because some are advisors that are specialists in investigations and labor relations, health and safety, they are often working remotely with our clients or on site with clients. So they're not here as much versus, consultants that are fractional in the sense that they're on site 2 days a week for our clients. So it really was slow, intentional, hearing the feedback from our clients, how they enjoyed working with us, and also listening to, for us, we don't have a sales team. So 100% of our work is either business relationships that I have built or referrals. And when you start to see companies coming to you from your competition, you listen to why. Why are they showing up for us? They want to work with us because of our expertise, the longevity and tenure of our teams, the hybrid model, the ability for them to come into our office as much as we can go into theirs. There was just countless things that we were hearing and we interpreted. We took that feedback, we did something with it, and sometimes it doesn't land and you make a mistake and you pivot. But I'm a bit of a risk taker, but I believe very strongly in calculated risk. So I don't take a risk that I can't afford to take. I won't make a hire that I can't afford to carry for a year if everything I was expecting to put on their plate goes away. And so it's responsible risk taking, but it's necessary if you want any form of real growth.
Yeah. You already mentioned the fact that a lot of the business comes through your relationships. And in a people business like this, you are the brand, you are the company. um, that is, it's great in the initial stages of scaling, but at some point it becomes a roadblock, and because you can't be everywhere for everyone all at once. How are you handing off relationships or handing off responsibilities to your team?
Again, I think it takes time. I think the biggest problem is that people rush. So they get a client and they hand it right off. Unless you've built the time and taken the time to cultivate those relationships. So a lot of the relationships start squarely with me, and I will bring in my recruitment lead and we will do some things together. You know, Thad's been with me for 3.5 years. And so she has shadowed me. She's been by my side. She's stepped in when I've been away. And eventually she's learned to build those relationships for herself. So now when our clients call and say, I have a need, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they would email Natasha and CC my team. Yeah. And now you've seen the inverse, where they're emailing my team and CCing me. That's where I want to be. I'm not looking to just have a bunch of people working for me and I'm not paying attention. I'm happy to be in the loop, but I'm also empowering them to hold those relationships. And I have just oversight. And I, at the end of the day, am the one responsible for making sure that it's delivered. So I am more of an escalation tool now than I am anything to do with the actual day-to-day running of recruitment and HR. I've got the teams who are, quite frankly, better at it than me at this stage. And so I'm proud that we've built that, where I have oversight and overview, but they maintain the relationships and they action.
Yeah, it sounds like the phrases slow and deliberate are part of your growth journey in a lot of different places, including people, where you're not aiming at throwing somebody to the wolves just to hand something off, but it's a slow, deliberate process. Um,
Yeah.
I already mentioned that you acquired a company. That was part of your growth journey. Talk me through the acquisition and how that impacted the business.
Yeah, so when I joined, there are certain things that I think are non-negotiables for me, right? You slowly hire, you slowly develop, you deliberately change roles and succession plan. But there's also things that you need to do very quickly, right? So when they say that saying of hire slow, fire fast, that is true. And so if you can't see the things that need to have pace, so my clients don't wait more than 2 hours to hear from me. The deliverables happen very quickly. If you're hiring even at the executive level, you're seeing candidates in 5 days. These are important from a pace perspective. Mm-hmm. When it came to an M&A, it was, again, for me, one of the things that I get asked a lot is like, have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? And if you ask my parents, I think they will say I've always had that spirit in me. But for me, I've actually always wanted to lead a team. For me, I didn't have the luxury of having strong leadership in my roles. And so moving into a place where now I was leading, I recognized what I needed to do for my team more so than I realized what I needed to do to build a business. So when I originally merged my company with Andrea's, it was on a handshake deal. It was her partner had retired. I was clearly not enjoying working alone. We got along really well. And so we decided to merge our companies on a handshake deal informally, which means like no money crossed hands, no contracts were signed. I just brought my business over and I began to CC her on my communication and she began to CC me on hers. We started to recognize that her forte was more temporary and permanent staffing. Mine was more executive search and fractional HR. So by merging our two teams, immediately we doubled our service lines. And we did that for 2 years. And it wasn't until January of 2020 that she said, it's time to put some skin in the game. We need to merge all our companies, become career contacts. She was the president. I became the vice president. I wrote her a significant check and I bought 50% of the shares. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I will say is that was, when I talk about a merger, that was our companies merging together and we were partners. And COVID hit 3 months later. And all of that revenue just sort of evaporated. But we were in very different places financially. And so a year later, when she sat me down and said she was ready to retire, I only had two options. I either had to buy her other 50% of the shares or give them back so she could sell the company. Those are your only options when your partner is going to sell. And the way that we had structured the deal was not keeping in mind that we were going to lose so much revenue during COVID. And so in my mind, I didn't have a choice. It was, we're going all in. And so I like to say that I was the little fish and she was the big fish, and the little fish had to eat the big fish. Mm-hmm. And I took over 100% of career contacts in 2021. And there is so much that people will look at me today and think like, oh, that was such a great decision. And it was, if you look at me today, those first 2 years were the most terrifying years. You know, I had invested twice in building something when I wasn't expecting to invest at all. I had a team going through a crazy pandemic. We had gone completely remote. It was so much change and challenge. And yet I will tell people that some of the best decisions I made were when my back was up against a wall and I didn't have a choice. Because when I look back, those first 9 months, I wasn't sure I could do this without her. I really didn't. And we've done exceptionally well. But again, to your point, we were slow and steady. We were deliberate. We were intentional. We didn't try to do everything at once. You know, fast forward to today, there are services that we used to offer 5 years ago that we don't. And there are a lot of things that we do today that we didn't 5 years ago. So our team has grown, our expertise has grown. I've learned by falling, and I know there's so much value in mentorship and guidance, and I do believe in it. For me, I am grateful that I didn't have access to a lot of that because it forced me to just take a bet on myself. And for me, I think a lot of what my success is due to the people who said my name in rooms I was not in. That has been a complete game changer for my business, is that people are willing to sponsor me when I'm not even around to ask them for that sponsorship. And that comes from building trust, having transparency, and taking your time to build. And when the business comes, that's when you move fast and deliberately, and you deliver 10 times more than what they were expecting. So they call you again.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
To both the decision and the outcome of that decision. And you described that as scary, you know, when COVID hit and you had to make this commitment. Many others in the recruiting space would look at AI today and say that is pretty scary. You call your business technology enabled.
Yeah.
Walk me through how you're using AI in particular in your business, and where do you see the technology taking you in the years to come?
I really value technology, and we have for years. It's always looked a little different, right? When we started with applicant tracking systems, that was very big. We were all inbox recruiters before. We used to put our ads in newspapers when I first started. And so to go from newspapers to now job boards and social media and all of these different things, technology has always played a role in recruitment and HR. And so for us, we believe very strongly in, have we defined what our superpower is, what our differentiator is? And part of that is that we work together in a hybrid capacity. It's that humans use thought leadership, use experience, use a collaborative process that allows us to look at people's resumes, to think about the alignment. And then we use AI to enable that. So a person might source and screen a resume. AI might allow us to email them in an automated fashion. It might allow us to do multiple things at the same time. We are happy to automate things that we do more than 3 times. That's our thing. If we do it 3 times, same thing, we fix it. But that's process improvement. That doesn't replace what we do and how we do it. We might be faster at it, but it allows us to do so much more. And I think, again, a mistake that a lot of recruitment firms are making right now is they're letting go in masses right now and expecting one person to do the job of three or four using AI. And all they're going to do is burn out that one really great recruiter. They're going to burn a bridge with three more, and AI is not going to take over. AI might make the process faster. And so my expectation is I'm not letting go of anyone, but eventually AI is going to enable them to do more in the roles that they already have. And they will be able to grow and develop, get trained faster, instead of calling a client to say, explain what a tax accountant does.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just a matter of Google now. We can use AI to find the company, figure out what the role is, understand what the success profile looks like, and enable our team to get so much information. So we go back to the client and say, we know exactly what it is that you're looking for, even if we've not worked on that role before.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want career contacts to be in, let's say, 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years? But where do you see the company in what are your personal goals in that time span?
The way that I look at my team is I have some employees that are with me full time and I'm paying for mortgages. And there are some that are with me part time or on a contract basis, and maybe I'm paying for dance classes and tap shoes. And both are equally important. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to look at my clients and say, I enabled you to go from 20 million to 40 million with my processes, with my ideas, with my team. And I want to be able to look at my employees and say, you don't have to decide when to do something because of financial reasons, because I have provided you with an opportunity here where if you want to move, you can move. If you want to start having a family, you do that. I want them to feel like they have the financial security to make the decisions that they want. We call it our 4 C's here. So our clients, our candidates, our community, and our colleagues. My expectation is that Career Contacts has built a brand where all 4 layers feel better off after having us in their worlds, which is why we've got such a big nonprofit community and base here. Financially, that number is just a forever moving target. I remember when we hit $1 million and I didn't even notice, right? Like it didn't actually become this big thing because you realize building $1 million company is hard, but it's actually not that much money when you have a team. And so, I could tell you that I hope to be 5, 10, 20 million, but at the end of the day, for me, it's, am I serving my clients, my community, the candidates that are working for our clients, and my colleagues?
Yeah. You talked about a lot of things that worked out really well, like the decision to invest the first 50% and then to acquire the other 50%, and your decision to be deliberate in hiring and growing. What's one decision that if you could redo it, you would make a different decision?
That's a good one, Henning. I don't know that I would do it differently because I landed some wonderful clients because of that decision. But 2 years ago, we made the decision to really double down on our efforts to grow in the US. And last year, that proved to be a very challenging decision. And so I had built all of this goodwill with the current clients we had. I had built all of these relationships. I had created a really strong strategy of being physically present in the US. And that was no longer a viable option for me in traveling to the US last year. And so I will say that it hurt a lot because I could see the opportunity right there. And it was something that was a difficult choice for me to say, we're not going to cancel it. We're just going to put it on hold. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a toxic positivity moment because I am constantly toxically positive. Because we chose to stop or pause on the US expansion, I really doubled down on Alberta and Ontario. Now we're across Canada and the US, but I really wanted to make an effort to do more in Alberta and Ontario. And that has proven to be the right strategy. I am absolutely loving it. The caliber of talent that we're finding there, the way that our clients are embracing us in Alberta, in Ontario, has been incredible. And so, although I'm still frustrated because I can see the opportunity right here and I can't quite reach it yet, I am grateful that it put me on pause because I'm born and raised in Canada, expanding in Canada is never going to be a problem for me. And so I'm grateful that I was able to pivot and do that instead.
Yeah. Well, Natasha, thank you. That was a great look at how to build a people first HR firm, and along the way, acquiring and merging into another business. Truly, the messy middle that
Yeah.
we describe when we put the target for this podcast together. So thank you for taking the time. How can listeners get in touch with you?
So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, Natasha Jeshani. I am on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active. You can also find me on Instagram at Your Career Contact. If you are looking for work, there's a job board on our website. And if you are looking for HR or recruitment support, reaching out to me on LinkedIn is the best way. That's also where you'll be able to see not just what we do, but how we do it. I think very grateful that we've got such generous clients in our community, and so my LinkedIn has now ended up being a source of all of my references. And that's a pretty cool place to send people. So, happy to have my clients speak for me on not just what we do, but how we do it.
Natasha, thanks again for being on the VCast, the Next Stage CEO.
Thank you so much for having me.